we lost power. I almost felt like that we lost a cylinder or something, but anyway, lost power, not complete power. We did have partial power, but couldn't hold altitude, and we had to make an off-airport landing in the middle of this.
I'm Jason Miller, a full-time professional flight instructor. On the Finer Points channel, you can join me as I bring you tips and tricks that I've learned from 20 years on the flight line. Hello aviators, welcome back to the Finer Points. So yeah, that actually happened about 1 month ago on our last airplane camp trip of the season, the canyons of the Southwest. One of the airplanes on the way home had a partial engine failure, was unable to hold altitude, and executed a forced landing. Now everybody was fine. These guys did an amazing job. The pilot was Joe Creasy. He's a commercial multi-instrument pilot who joined us from Tennessee, and his CFI, Fernando, who's got decades of military experience. He's an experienced CFI himself. He's got a lot of time in an F-15. He was able to bring his expertise to this as well, and those guys did a fantastic job, and they're both safe. So that allows us to kind of Monday morning quarterback this thing, and it's so fascinating because this is the education we were teaching all weekend, right? For over a decade, we run these airplane camp trips every year to teach pilots how to deal with situations exactly like this, what to do if you go down in a remote area. If you want to see the complete debrief that Fernando and Joe and I did, where we talk it through for over an hour, that is available on Patreon. We are going to bring that also into the Ground School app, but I'm going to try, for those of you that have 10 or 15 minutes here on YouTube, I'm going to try to distill the education down, explain what went so well for these guys, and point out a couple of things that they themselves admit they could have done better. When we teach this education, we teach it in sort of three phases, right? The very first thing, the most important thing, is that people know where you are and when you expect to be there. When we talk to the Tahoe Nordic Search and Rescue on our mountain camp trip in June, they tell us that those pilots who file flight plans typically get found in 24 to 36 hours, while those who don't typically take 72 hours to be found. Often this is irrespective of whether or not they have a personal locator beacon, and it depends on what kind of PLB you have, all right? When it comes to the big picture, these guys were in a unique situation because we were all leaving this weekend. We were spending together. We had 19 airplanes. Everybody knew where they were headed, at least at this phase of the departure. One of the huge takeaways for us is that it's not a single strategy that's going to be effective in making the rescue most efficient. It's a multi-pronged strategy. You have to have a flight plan. You have to have flight following. You should have a satellite phone like an iPhone with satellite capabilities. You should have a Garmin inReach. We also learned about the difference between having the messaging capability of an inReach versus just an old school PLB that you would crack and push. Psychologically, it was huge. Fernando had the ability to communicate with me. I could communicate back to him and say, that rescue is on the way. Think of the difference, right? Think of the alternative. Had he and Joe just been sitting there hitting the old PLB button and maybe waiting for up to 36 hours, wondering if the rescue is coming, right? So it can be night and day. We learned a lot about how important that functionality is. That's why we're giving 2 of them away on our upcoming webinar, November 21st. Garmin's working with us. We're giving away 2 inReaches and a year subscription to Ground School, so we're giving away 3 prizes. Join us for that webinar. Howard and I are going to talk about what typically happens. Typically, people are out there for 24 to 36 hours, and Howard does a lecture at our airplane camps called Spending the Unexpected Night Out. So that's the name of the webinar. That's what we're going to be talking about. Please join us Thursday, November 21st. The second thing is that you're able to maneuver the airplane into a confined area, and that you're able to kind of crash it, let's say, in a controlled way such that even if the airplane is damaged, you and your passengers are able to get out. These guys did a fantastic job there. Some interesting points to note. One is that Fernando elected to let Joe fly through it, which in retrospect turned out to be an amazing, experienced, and confident decision that I believe helped contribute to the success of all of this. But he himself is critical that he wasn't as aware of the landing sites behind him as he could have been, right? So by the time they realized they were in this situation, they were really committed to this one single butte.
No flaps until we we were about to touch down, and then he dumped the flaps, which was good, and all that stuff was awesome. And then here's the next fun part about happy that we made the decision to let him fly, is because he was so focused and he got us there, which was awesome. I had like 2 extra brain bites, and I was really closely monitoring the left edge and the right edge. And if you look at this terrain, there was a big like bend into the left edge that actually we were kind of pointing towards a little bit, like maybe the left wheel, maybe more, but definitely I was like a little quick, one of those faces of death thoughts in my brain of, I don't want to roll off that left side. And I kind of barked a little bit. It was like, go to the right, go to the right. And he kicked in a boot of rudder.
I'm so glad he did, because I was focused on straight ahead and trying to see if there was an obstacle coming up. I wasn't even looking right and left. And he noticed that we were getting dangerously close to the left edge of the mesa as we were bouncing on this landing. And so I think we just kicked in right rudder and a little bit of right aileron as we were, coming to a stop there.
Also, something to point out is at airplane camp, Eric Cope teaches that you should wear everything you're going to need. Your signal mirror, your Garmin InReach, like everything you're going to need should be on you. Just imagine if Joe and Fernando did not do as good a job as they did, and the aircraft were somehow on fire when they landed. They would just need to get out and run, and that is usually what happens. So there is a saying in survival that if it's not on your body, you're not going to have it when you need it. And that's a great takeaway for all of us. And the last concept is the sort of micro location. Can you bring the rescuers to you? In this case, Fernando had a Garmin messaging unit, so he was able to communicate with me the whole time, right from the beginning. He also had a handheld radio so that when he heard our aircraft approaching, he was able to say, no, you're too far to the east. You need to come more west. And then when we finally got in his location, he hit us with a signal mirror. It's like an explosion of light. You can't miss where they are. But we have heard stories from the Tahoe Nordic Search and Rescue Association of hundreds of rescuers in certain, dark, snowy nights getting within a half mile of a wreck and never finding it. So they have these emergency whistles that are quite loud. We talk through all of this at airplane camp, but you want to make sure that once you're found, the rescuers actually find you, right? They come right to you, and you'd be surprised how hard that can be. But hey, we learned so much from this. I hope distilling that education down a little bit is beneficial for you. As I mentioned, if you want to see the complete debrief, it's up at Patreon. We're also going to be getting that into our ground school app, and we have a free webinar coming up on November 21st. That's Howard Donner talking about spending the unexpected night out, which is what normally happens in a good situation when you've done everything correct. So anyway, we're really grateful for Fernando and Joe that they're okay and that they're so generous as to share this experience with us so that we can all benefit from the learning here. All right, leave a comment below. If there's a video you'd like to see, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the little alert bell so you get notified of uploads. Also, you can always get a free 3-day trial of the Ground School app if that's something you'd like to check out. It's good for new and experienced pilots alike. I'm Jason Miller, and until I see you guys again, be safe and fly your best.